On today's show, the Rockets completely choked, but the Cavs choked even worse. The Kings rally from down 18 to beat the Warriors. The Celtics need overtime to beat the Clippers B-team squad, and so much more. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every single night. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And joining me is my partner in crime, David Ramil, the host of Locked On Heat. David, what did you see in the NBA last night?
A lot of great basketball, a heck of a performance from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Lots to talk about. Can't wait to get to it.
So many great games on our 8-game slate. It was a 9-game slate. We had one of our games, Pelicans-Bucks, canceled due to this snowpocalypse hitting the southern area of the United States. Hopefully, first and foremost, hope everybody affected by that is doing okay. I'm located in Houston, and I saw snow for like the second time in my life. That's kind of ridiculous. Let's get into it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen each and every day. Now today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off of your first purchase. And where we're going, we're keeping things in Houston for our first game of the night, as the Rockets definitely choked, but the Cavs choked even worse. Let's throw it out to Locked On Cavs host Danny Cunningham for his side.
Cavaliers lose on Wednesday night to the Houston Rockets by 1 point in a wild finish. Darius Garland had the opportunity to go win the game for the Cavs. He had 3 free throws after he was flagrantly fouled on a 3-point attempt. He missed 2 out of 3. That is not like Darius Garland. Coming into this game, Garland had missed 14 free throws all season long. Today, he missed 5 free throws. It's the most he's ever missed in a single game in his career. The Cavs did a lot of, I think, uncharacteristic things on Wednesday night. They shot the ball very poorly, both from the floor and from beyond the arc. Defensively, I didn't think they played a very good game until the fourth quarter when they did go on a 19-0 run against the Rockets. I think that this one just was as many things that happened that we're not used to seeing happen with the Cavs. I don't think there's too much to read into to this one. I think that this will be one they're able to sort of brush off and move on to their next game.
Well, they're going to have to brush it off pretty quickly because they have to face the Rockets again this upcoming Saturday. That's the Rockets' next game. It'll be on the second night of a back-to-back for the Cavaliers, and the Rockets get a whole ton of rest between now and then since they don't face anybody else. David, when I tell you the emotional roller coaster of the end of this game, with the Rockets, first off, surviving the Cavalanche. Not many teams can do that. The Cavs did rip off that 19-0 run to take control of this game. They went up 6 there in the fourth quarter, and then Steady Freddy himself, Fred VanVleet, steps up, knocks down back-to-back insanely clutch triples to make the game 104 all, and then Rockets get a big stop on a Darius Garland drive. They get out in transition, and they're able to then, put a few more possessions together, get a few more points on the board. Alperen Şengün gets a big bucket, and this game is it's all Rockets with them in control. They're up 109-107. It's down to the final defensive possession of the game, and all you need to do is D up. All you need to do is not give up a 3. A 3 beats you. 2 takes things to overtime. Sure, there might still be some time left on the clock to play around, whatever. And literally the worst thing that could possibly happen happens. Rockets sub in their all defensive lineup, and Tari Eason fouls Darius Garland on a 3-point attempt. He closes out way too hard on him, completely undercuts him. It's ruled a flagrant foul. So not only does Garland get the 3 shots for the 3-point foul, the Cavs also get the basketball back. And that's where Garland goes to the free throw line, completely chokes the game away, misses 2 of the 3 free throw attempts, and then the Cavs still had a chance to win it with a Donovan Mitchell turnaround fadeaway that was beautifully contested by Amin Thompson, and the Rockets were able to escape. The Rockets choked this game, David, but then the Cavs somehow were like, hold my beer, and they choked even worse.
Yeah, surprising again, as Cunningham pointed out, the fact that he missed 5 free throws. And I think that's what everybody's going to be talking about, because he had a fantastic game. And that's a shame, because he really did have a great performance. 26 points, 10 to 21 from the floor. He was solid and steady all night in his offensive production. And yet to miss those free throws, especially those free throws at the end, ridiculous. I was watching on the edge of my seat, couldn't believe that he was missing the first one. Then all of a sudden he misses the second one, and it's completely, again, I was on that same roller coaster with you, Jackson, even though I didn't have any stakes attached to this game. It was amazing to see. And just a bizarre ending for a player of Garland's caliber. And I kind of jokingly texted this to somebody, but does this impact, and at this point maybe it's too late, but does this impact like his all-star credibility? Like, here's a game where he can tie it up. And again, maybe that's overstating things to a certain degree, but he has this great offensive performance. And yet when it matters most, all you have to do is hit these free throws. And he has this kind of a subpar performance at the line. I wonder whether or not that impacts the people who might be voting him in there, because it's a damn shame for a player of Garland's caliber.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often you see a 90% free throw shooter miss 5 free throws in a given game, especially the ones coming there at the end of, at the end of the night, with the chance to literally win the game. Like, the Rockets basically gift wrapped this game to the Cavaliers, and then the Cavs were like, no, here, you take the win. We don't want this one. Tari Eason must have just been breathing such a sigh of relief the moment he saw the first miss, and then when he saw the second miss, I'm sure he was just giddy on the inside, knowing that his mistake wasn't going to be as amplified as it really should have been, given the gravity of the situation and the dichotomy too of the fact that on the other side of the court, you had Alperen Sengun, who's been absolutely struggling with his free throw shooting so far this season, career worst, shooting season for him at the charity stripe. And yet he goes up and cool, collected, knocks down 2 insanely clutch free throws after getting the defensive box out where Jarrett Allen had to foul him underneath the basket on the first kind of, potentially go-ahead bucket by Donovan Mitchell, with him, trying to take a really tough contested step back, still guarded by Amin Thompson, who's playing some out of this world defense this season, should be a shoe-in for an all-defensive team this year. And Sengun walks to the free throw line and knocks him down, no issue, even though he's been struggling at the line all season long.
Is this the biggest win for the Rockets this season? I mean, to be able to knock off the Cavs. I know they've had some nice wins over the course of the season, but you cover the team, obviously. Where does this rank amongst the wins this season?
I think it's tough, because it's almost like, because that really big, ugly mistake, let's just put it this way. We're not putting this game in Springfield. Like, this is not going to be a game for the ages or anything. This is an ugly game. And to Danny's point about the Cavs not playing their best game, the Rockets also didn't play their best game. One of their things that they're best at doing in the NBA is they take great care of the basketball. In this game, they turned it over way too much. 22 turnovers to the tune of 33 Cavaliers points. That's almost unsustainable. And for some reason, even though the Rockets are one of the best teams in the NBA taking care of the basketball, they have now improved to 5-0 when turning the ball over more than 20 times. So, hey, maybe turnovers aren't a bad thing for this Rockets squad. I don't know. I will tell you this, though, David. I won't say that this is a good win. They found a way to close it out. They found a way to survive the Cavalanche there in the fourth quarter. The Rockets are now the only team in the NBA that's beaten both the Thunder and the Cavaliers. So at some point, maybe the Rockets can start getting a little bit of like recognition because I feel like there's this narrative about them as like this fake 2 seed, that they're not a real 2 seed, that they've overachieved. They've certainly overachieved the expectations that they had set for themselves going into the season. They've far surpassed any expectations that I had for them, but they're also really legitimate. They have an incredible defense. They have a team that can lock in and get stops when they need to. They are easily one of, if not maybe the most physical team in the entire association, and they impose their will on a nightly basis. When it comes to other teams, their biggest issue, their Achilles heel, is they haven't really had a consistent go-to guy this season. Some nights it's Alperen Sengun, some nights it's Jalen Green, other nights it's Fred VanVleet. That's been kind of the revolving door for them so far, but when they do have a guy that can step up and knock down the big shots and arrive in those clutch moments, whoever it may be on a nightly basis, this team looks pretty good.
Well, it's not Darius Garland, that's for sure. Anyway,
he did his best. What was it, Nick Anderson impression with the missed free throws? God. Oh my God, what a throwback!
That's very impressive on your part there. Look, the Rockets are legit, but to your point though, no one knows for certain what this team is until the playoffs, and that's unfortunate because it doesn't. You don't want to overlook a great regular season. That's certainly what the Houston Rockets are having. But until they're tested in the fires of the playoffs, you really don't know for certain how they'll respond to those moments. But I'm optimistic that they'll be able to respond, because that kind of defense, that level of defense, and the fact that they have such a balanced attack, I think it bodes well for this team to be able to at least win one series in the upcoming playoffs.
Coming up, the Kings rally from down 18 to beat the Warriors, and the Celtics got taken to overtime by the Clippers B team. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Talkspace. Look, therapy is an absolute game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is so simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off of your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off of your first month and show your support for the show. That's Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80. And continuing on here at Locked On NBA Game Night, where we thank you so much for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On show for your favorite team. Maybe it's Locked On Heat with David Ramil. Maybe it's Locked On Rockets with me, where you can go celebrate or relive the trauma of the ending of that Rockets-Cavs game with me over there at Locked On Rockets. All right, let's get to our next game of the night, where the Kings rally from down 18 to beat the Warriors. Let's throw it out to Locked On Warriors host Chuck Walter for more.
This is just who the Warriors are right now. Golden State's Jekyll and Hyde. And typically you know what you're going to get. The Warriors either come out and shoot 50% from three, or they shoot like 27%. There's not an in-between, typically. Sometimes there is, and today was one of those games. Warriors go 14 of 26 from three in the first half. Buddy nails one to end the first half at 65-48 Golden State. We're feeling pretty good about it, although it's on the Kings floor. They've been hot, and we figure that Sacramento's going to have a run in them. DeMar DeRozan heats up in the second half for Sacramento. They go with a little zone. They pick up the pressure. It really stifles Golden State, who starts throwing the ball away. Some of them forced, others unforced. The Kings turn over the Warriors 19 times in the game. 19 times. They scored 27 points off those turnovers, and that was your difference. Kings storm all the way back from down 17 at halftime, and they defeat Golden State 123-117.
David, the third quarter by the Kings in this game, they absolutely, like, whatever the motivational speech was at halftime from interim coach Doug Christie, I mean, he absolutely, they galvanized. They came together. DeMar DeRozan was flawless in that third quarter, 19 points on 7 of 7 shooting from the floor. He was perfect at the charity stripe, 4 of 4. Kings turned the Warriors over a ton of times there. Chuck was talking about it, but 8 turnovers there in the third quarter to the tune of 13 points for Sacramento. And they ended things on a 16-4 run. From the moment Steph Curry checked out of that third quarter, the Kings went on a 16-4 run to end the game, or in the third quarter, I should say, and tied up 85 going into the fourth. I don't know what Doug Christie got, like what's gotten into this team, because sometimes you see, you know, okay, head coach gets fired, and then I don't know. This Kings team is playing some of the best basketball that they've played, even from during the Mike Brown era.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, 10-2 under Doug Christie, that's a phenomenal level of performance. 9-1 over the last 10. They've won 3 in a row. They're doing everything right. And look, this is a team that had high expectations that just didn't live up to those. So you wonder what went wrong under Brown, because I don't think we've got any kind of clarity whether or not it was a situation with De'Aaron Fox or not. And there's some kind of, you know, there's might have been tension there in the locker room, et cetera. But Christie certainly has these players playing at a high level. And what I love best about them is something that we haven't seen from them in the past, which is a defensive presence and an intensity that can change the course of the game. We've covered a number of games so far during the Christie era where we've seen them go on these incredible runs defensively and be able to make these incredible comebacks. And tonight was no different. Heck of a performance. And when you get a player like DeRozan and he catches fire the way he does, well, that makes a huge difference for this team. So look, they had these kinds of expectations that they would gel almost right away, and didn't happen. And it took the firing of Mike Brown to somehow light a fire under them. They seem to be playing much more relaxed, but also with a greater sense of purpose and a purity in what they're doing. And it's impressive to see. They're a really, really good team. And look, right now, climbing their way out of the play in the Western Conference, who knows what could happen.
Yeah, Sacramento Kings moving up to the 7th seed in the West, and the Warriors now out of the play-in discussion. The Warriors are, if you're staring down the barrel of this situation as the Warriors, David, how are you feeling?
Look, I don't know. With the Warriors, it just feels like they're kind of resigned to a lost season, despite what Steph Curry recently said, saying, he's no one would expect him to be content on a middling team, and anybody who knows him would say that. But I think you have no choice. Like they're not going to be very good right now. They're not going to be very good this season. It's just unfortunate that we're seeing the tail end of his career end in this way, but they just don't have it right now. And I don't know that they're going to make any kind of major moves or anything that, as they've talked about on a number of occasions. They're not going to mortgage their long-term future. They're just resigned to kind of having a bad season, and they can't turn it around internally. So I don't know. It's when you hear Curry's comments and you see what this team is actually like, there's a kind of dichotomy there. But at the same time, I'm kind of viewing this team and I just say, you know what? They're just not going to be very good this season.
Even though the Warriors have caused me a lot of pain and suffering over the years, seeing this, like the end of the Steph Curry era, right, going out with a whimper and not with a bang is like really disappointing, just as like a basketball fan. Like the Warriors are just completely mishandling this whole situation. It feels really rough on all fronts. Let's get to our next game here, as the Boston Celtics got taken down to the wire, overtime, by the Clippers B team squad. Let's throw it out to Locked On Celtics host John Corrales.
The Celtics don't like to make it easy on themselves. They had a very terrible collapse there at the end of the fourth quarter. They had this game won, and instead they go to overtime. They did win the game, but it took longer than it should have against the Clippers team that played great without all of their players. I mean, I was surprised that they could even field a team in this one. But look, Jaden Springer's the guy who changed the game. He came in at the end of the third quarter, when in the beginning of the fourth quarter, when the Clippers were just getting to the rim at will. Springer kind of shut that water off, had 4 steals in 12 minutes, and changed the entire defensive energy. So if it wasn't for him, and then he hits a big 3-pointer at the end of the fourth quarter, a big 3-pointer in overtime to kind of seal this. So he's the man of the night for the Celtics. Don't know how they would have been if he didn't play. So on a night where they didn't have Porzingis or Al Horford or Drew Holiday, it's nice to see Springer step up and kind of bail the Celtics out.
David, I think I've admitted to this already on this very podcast, but on the off chance that I haven't, I've got to rescind any earlier statements that I made about this Clippers squad, because I had zero faith in them going into this season. And credit where credit is due. They have completely reinvented their kind of identity, their culture. They defend at an incredibly high level, and that defense is what's elevated their floor so high this season. It's the reason that they've been able to have that level of kind of more or less sustained success in a bloodbath of a Western Conference without having a fully healthy roster, right? With missing their best player for a good chunk of the season in Kawhi Leonard. And it's why they were able to be so competitive against the defending champs, who, albeit, were not at full strength, right? No Porzingis, no Drew Holiday, no Al Horford in this game. So missing, 3 of their big 6, if you will. But at the same time, on the other side for the Clippers, they're missing everybody. They're missing literally basically their entire starting lineup. No Harden, no Kawhi, no Zubac, no Norm Powell. And I was blown away watching this Clippers team and how aggressively they were able to defend, how well they executed on that side of the floor, and then watching different guys step up over the course of the game with Derrick Jones Jr. and then Kevin Porter Jr. had the big third quarter, and just down the stretch getting things done with defense, and then in sharing the basketball offensively. It felt like they really caught the Celtics by surprise, and it felt like the Celtics just were awful down the stretch at executing, man.
Yeah, I mean, from somebody who covers a team like Miami and has seen Eric Spoelstra over the last 16 seasons, it's impressive. Again, never won Coach of the Year, widely regarded as one of the best coaches in the NBA, one of the best coaches of all time. You can debate that if you want to. The point is, Ty Lue doesn't get any kind of credit either. Like, he has always managed to get teams to play at a higher level, and he certainly has done that with this Clippers squad. I shared your lack of enthusiasm about this Clippers team. They seem like they were older. They lost Paul George, but it might be addition by subtraction in some ways because they've kind of redefined who they are. And while their ceiling isn't as high, their floor is actually, I think, a lot higher than it was also. So it's just been fun to watch them. Gritty performance. Let's shift it over, though. How about this? How do you feel about the Celtics performance? Because, again, they were missing key players. Are you concerned at all? Because even I'm not. And I mean, I'm as harsh a critic on the Celtics as you could possibly find. And yet, to be honest with you, watching the Celtics team kind of just ho-hum their way through it and still find a way to pull out a victory and go 8 of 25 between Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown from the three-point line. Like, I'm not concerned about the Celtics' problems at this point because I think they're just kind of looking at the regular season and going, you know what? We went all in last year. We won the championship. We know what we're capable of. We've talked about this before. Are you any more concerned about the Celtics at this point after watching them kind of, again, struggle against a B team like this?
I don't know if this is going to be a weird take, but the only concern that I would potentially have is they're so accustomed to just absolutely demolishing other teams that I feel like they're almost not, they don't have enough reps playing in crunch time against other teams to where they almost look, I don't want to say uncomfortable, that's not the right word, because you're right, they are just kind of, very casually going through this season. It's almost like they're playing lazy at times, right? They're not taking their opponents seriously, that kind of stuff. And that does lead to some poor execution. They're not playing as crisp as they should be. And,
sure,
even like the start of overtime, right? It kind of felt like, they flipped a switch, right? They went on, they reeled off a couple threes, a quick 6-0 run. It was, a 9-2 run, at one point, because they just started bombing threes, right? And you're like, okay, here's the Celtics. They woke up. They're taking care of business. They realized it shouldn't have gotten to this point. And then they still kind of let the Clippers back into the game. So I do think that there is something of a concern there, but at the same time, how concerned can you really be when you're still missing half of your best players, right? When they're out there with Drew and with Horford and with Porzingis, they're a very different beast than they are when they're playing with, yes, you've still got your two best players in Tatum and Brown, and Derek White's obviously, playing some incredible basketball for them, but it's a very different dynamic trying to guard the Celtics down the stretch or just guard them, period, when they are healthy versus, when they're playing, some of their reserves and stuff, heavy minutes, crunch time minutes, all that stuff. So not ready to hit the panic button yet, although I don't know how many different times Joe Mazzulla was going to march onto the court because he was frustrated about the late game execution. He felt like he was on the court as much as the players were to close out this game, both at the end of regulation and in overtime. But coming up, we've got the rest of our 8-game slate to get into. 5 games left on the docket. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander finally gets a 50-point game in a win against the Utah Jazz, and the Wolves barely holding on against the hospital Mavericks. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, going to live events is the best. I love it. Whether it's a basketball game or a concert or the theater or a comedy club. One of my favorite memories was actually going to a concert last year. I bought the tickets on Game Time, and the energy, the excitement, it was a really unforgettable experience. Game Time's made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different ticketing offers. Recently, I was looking for some tickets to a Rockets game a little bit later in the month, and I was using the Game Time app. It made it so easy to find great deals. You can even see the view from your seat before you buy. The super deal was really impressive. They had great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, with the app's all-in pricing, they show the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. They are fully transparent. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And final segment here at Locked On NBA Game Night. We appreciate you for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen each and every day. Let's go ahead and throw it out where we had a nail biter between the Wolves and the injury-riddled Dallas Mavericks. Throw it out to Locked On Wolves for more.
The Minnesota Timberwolves held on to beat the Dallas Mavericks by a single point on Wednesday night. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Locked On Wolves podcast. This was a short-handed Mavericks team. Of course, no Luka Doncic, still no Derek Lively, no Klay Thompson. Several rotation players out for Dallas, and the Wolves still barely held on by a single point in this one. Anthony Edwards finished at 21, but it took him 19 shots to do it. And Dallas did a great job defending him, especially down the stretch. Instead, it was Jaden McDaniels who led the way scoring-wise for Minnesota with 27 points. He was second on the team, but behind Ant in terms of field goal attempts in this game with 18, and he added 4 steals, 3 blocks, and 8 rebounds. Anytime you get a 27 and 8 with 7 stocks from Jaden McDaniels, you're in a good spot. Kyrie Irving had 36 on 21 shots. Nobody else really came to the party except for PJ Washington, a little bit late for Dallas. But this was a fun game down the stretch, back and forth. Minnesota holds on to win. We're going to break the whole thing down over at Locked On Wolves.
To that 27 for Jaden McDaniels, a career high for Jaden McDaniels, which I was a little surprised by. I was like, it really took him that long to get 27, I guess if you're that type of role player. But all right, this is our third segment here on our version of Game Night, where we play shoot, drive, pass, shoot. If you got a take about a game, drive. If you want to ask a question about a game, pass. If you don't want to add any additional commentary. So what you got for this one, David? Shoot, drive, or pass?
I'm going to shoot. And honestly, I'm selling my stock on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I don't know. They just don't have it this year. And I don't know if it's the addition of Julius Randle, and it's not fair to pin it on him because I think he actually played pretty solid down the stretch. But just the whole identity that we saw last year is completely has evaporated. The same way that we talked about the Clippers building an identity, the Wolves have lost who they are. And to Ben's point, the fact that they couldn't barely beat this team, this Mavericks team that was missing so many key players. And when you've got all that talent in the Minnesota side, you can't seem to figure it out. I'm just not bullish about their chances of being able to go on a deep playoff run or be able to duplicate the success they had last year. They're a middling team. They keep struggling. They just haven't been able to figure it out. And I don't know that they will. And I don't think there's any moves to be made that will improve this roster. They are who they are, and they're just not very good at this point. And I don't think they will be at any point this season either.
The future is always going to be okay as long as you've got Anthony Edwards, but in the immediate here and now, things are looking very bleak for this Timberwolves team. I fully agree with you there. Let's throw it out to our next game, where the Memphis Grizzlies taking care of business against the Charlotte Hornets. Let's throw it to Locked On Grizzlies for more.
So what would you like first, the good news or the bad news coming out of the Memphis Grizzlies' double-digit victory over the Charlotte Hornets? I'll start with the good news here in a moment. I'm Joe Mullinax of Locked On Grizzlies, and there were things to be excited about. Memphis won by about the amount that FanDuel and others felt that they were going to win by, right? A 12-point victory. And the Grizzlies did some really good things, especially in the first half. A 30-point lead, scoring 40 points in the second quarter. Really solid stuff, doing exactly what you would expect Memphis to do to the Charlotte Hornets. Then the second half happened. In particular, the third quarter, but the fourth quarter wasn't much better either. Charlotte kept playing. The Grizzlies did not. Fouls, turnovers, interesting rotation choices. The things that have marred Memphis this entire season kind of reared their ugly head all at the same time. Memphis has some cleaning up to do if they hope to truly be a contender in the Western Conference.
Memphis took care of business here, but you know who else took care of business? Mark Williams, who had himself a night. 38 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 14 of 18 shooting, went 10 of 13 at the free throw line. What you got for me, David? Shoot, drive, pass.
I'm going to pass. I don't want to disagree with Joe because obviously he knows the team and he covers, them completely, and he's aware of the pulse of the squad. But this team was beating the pants off of the Charlotte Hornets early on, and they just got outscored by 20 points basically in the second half. I mean, this was a huge lead at one stretch there. I didn't think it was going to get this close, but they kind of took their foot off the gas, and I think that kind of changed the dynamic there. So I'm not reading too much into it. To me, it's just a game that happened, and you move on, and you look forward to better games.
Yeah, Grizzlies led by 35 at one point in that game. It was a clobbering, to say the least. All right, let's get to our next game. The Thunder winning against the Utah Jazz. And SGA having himself a career night, finally broke the seal and earned himself a 50-point outing.
The Oklahoma City Thunder get a big win over the Utah Jazz. Big because it was SGA's career high. 54 points, his first ever 50-point game. His first 50-point game since high school, where he said the competition not great. The competition in this game, also not great. It's one of the worst teams in the NBA, but a lot of big bodies in the mid-range, which is where Shai went to work and had the majority of his points. He was able to get to his spots cleanly. Even the misses on the not most efficient night from Shai, the misses were clean. The misses went in and out. He typically makes those shots. Did not tonight, but did not deter him from getting 54 in a game that the Thunder really sleptwalked through. They did not have their best stuff. They did not especially have their best stuff defensively, but they woke up enough to get a win and head to tomorrow night on the second night of a back-to-back against their rival Dallas Mavericks.
All right, SGA's ultimate stat line, 54 points on 17 of 35 shooting. He went 17 of 18 at the charity stripe, had 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in his 37 minutes of run. David, shoot, drive, pass.
I'm going to drive. Jackson, is this the kind of game that cements Shai's MVP case?
Absolutely not. Against the look, if he had a career night, right, posting a career high, getting the dub, whatever, against an elite team, sure. I don't think we're also not early enough in the season for this to be any kind of, cementing of an MVP case, whatever. However, I will say that I think the Thunder have been such a dominant team this season that SGA's MVP case should have been over with like a month ago. I don't know. I know that there's cases to be made for Jokic with Denver. I think it's SGA's MVP award to lose at this point. And if the Thunder continue to be the best team in the Western Conference, one of the best teams in the NBA, we'll see TBD on what happens with the Cleveland Cavaliers and how their record holds up in the East. I think it's Shai's award to ultimately lose, and he might not even need or be in the market for an MVP defining game later on this season. I think he's the front runner right now, and I think it's his turn to earn it, right? He was in the conversation last year. Thunder are the best team. He's the best player on the best team. Should be his award to lose. Let's throw it out to our two more games to get to on our slate. Our next one, the Phoenix Suns blowing out the Brooklyn Nets 108-84. Devin Booker, 32 points, but it took him 24 shots to get there, 14 of 24 shooting. KD, 24 points on 8 of 15. On the other side for the Nets, Keon Johnson, 20 points on 9 of 16 shooting. Nick Claxton, 10 points, 12 boards, 5 of 9. And Nick Richards, still, getting accustomed to wearing the orange and purple of a Phoenix Suns jersey. Only 8 points, 3 of 4 shooting, but did have 15 rebounds, rebounding, doing what he was brought to Phoenix to do ultimately. What you got on this one, David? Shoot, drive, pass.
I wanted to pass, but I think I'm going to shoot, and I'm going to say that I don't know that adding Jimmy Butler is going to save this team. I just really don't think. I know that we might be a little premature here. The deal far from done. A lot of people talking about the possibility of adding Butler, and yet without Bradley Beal and his willingness to move to join another team, it all feels kind of moot. I just think they're kind of stuck, and I don't think they're going to get any better. Unfortunately, this is another one of Kevin Durant-led super team that is going to live up to expectations.
And they just handed Danny Ainge, one of the juiciest trade assets in the entire NBA, that 2031 unprotected pick to try and do something to salvage this season. We'll see how this powder keg ultimately goes up in flames with the Phoenix, or maybe not. We'll see. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt for a little bit longer. Let's get to our final game of the evening. Pistons getting the win against the Atlanta Hawks. Let's throw it out to Locked On Hawks, Brad Rowland.
Hello, friends. My name is Brad Rowland. I'm the host of the Locked On Hawks podcast, and the Hawks had a very, very tough shooting night on this Wednesday in what became a 114-104 loss to the Pistons at home. Atlanta ends up with their worst shooting night of the season from three-point range, 6 of 38, including 1 of 29 from anyone not named V. Krejci or Garrison Matthews. It was that kind of night for Atlanta. They were pretty good defensively in the second half, in particular, giving themselves at least a fighting chance to come back in this game, but it never really materialized. It was still a double-digit game for the most part in the second half. No one was great for Atlanta. A bad night for Trae Young, a rough one for Jalen Johnson in some respects, efficiency-wise. DeAndre Hunter, Bogdanović. It was just a rough one offensively for Atlanta on the whole in this game. And to the Pistons' credit, this is the second time this year they built a big lead against the Hawks and then held on for dear life in the second half. But now Detroit has beaten Atlanta twice, and the Hawks will now have to bounce back quickly because they play at home on Thursday and Saturday against the Toronto Raptors.
Just looking down the Hawks roster, Jalen Johnson, 0 of 6, Trae Young, 1 of 4, Dyson Daniels, 0 of 5, DeAndre Hunter, 0 of 9, Bogdanović, 0 of 4. Just an awful shooting performance for them. On the Pistons side of things, Cade Cunningham, triple-double watch, 29 points, 11 assists, and 10 turnovers. First player in NBA history to record back-to-back games of double-digit turnovers. David, what you got for me? Shoot, drive, pass.
I'm going to pass, but I do want to take this opportunity to say that my prediction about the Pistons season is looking wonderful, because I thought they were going to be a pretty good team. And I don't know that they'll escape the play-in, unfortunately, but at the same time, they're a much more dynamic team than the Charlotte Hornets, which is basically the comparison I made earlier in the season, and I'm standing by it.
Talk your talk, David. Run your victory. Maybe it's a little early to run the victory lap, but you can start, start the stretching, right? Get loose for the victory lap, because it's coming your way. Pistons are a good team, but they get Cade some help, please, so that he can cut down on these turnovers. They have nobody else to handle the rock, and that's why he's turning the ball over so much. All right, we appreciate you for being here with us at Locked On NBA Game Night. For your next listen, go find the Locked On show for your favorite team. Until then, we will catch you guys on our very next game night.